Today we're going to do a little bit more on rendering. I'm going to show you a couple of tricks that I've learned over the years, and it's really just to give you an idea. Every render that you do is going to be slightly different, but this hopefully will give you a little bit more confidence on sort of understanding how to get started and the best ways maybe to do your first test and work from there. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a render of this design that we've done here. I'm just going to move it up a little bit. So there's a couple of ways to do it. The first thing is if we go to Tools and we go to Dynamic View, and I'm just going to pull this in so you can see it. I tend to do most of my rendering as if I'm doing like a walk, it's me standing there looking at it. So I'll tend to use this over here, and what I can do is I've got a few saved already. I'm just going to save another one, so I'm going to put a number in there and I'm just going to press save. It's going to save this view that we've got now, just so that I don't have to go backwards and forwards to show you. So if, for instance, I go back to edit, views, and I come to this one and I change the effect, you'll see what it does when I go into my dynamic view. I now have this view where it's more of a direct, straight on type of view, which again you can use for rendering. I just find if I'm going to do a flat wall or something like that, then I'll use this view, but if I'm doing a generalized render of a scene, I prefer to use the opposite view. So if we go back view, I'm going to click it back there, and that's the view that we're going to use today. Okay, the next thing I find that works really well is make sure that you've got a ceiling. It just helps with the way the light comes through, so you don't have funny lights coming through from the top and things like that. Also, what you can do with inside Promob, if you're not aware of it, under your tools, you can also go in and you can change the feel of certain aspects. So let's say, for instance, on this top, I actually want to change that type of material. I can go to, click on it, go to Properties, and then go from Geometry, go to Materials. And you'll see at the moment I've got nothing chosen for this material, this darker material here, but I actually want to make it maybe like a granite or something like that. I can come down here where it says None, I can click on it, and it's going to allow me to give it an effect of what I'm looking for. So depending on what I'm looking at, I can go along here and say a mineral, and now I've got all types of things. I can do it as a concrete, I can do it as clay, I can do it as sandstone. It'll give me a lot of different options to how I want that to be finished. So on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to concrete. I don't want it to be a high gloss or anything like that, so what I'm going to do is I want that to be maybe an eggshell or raw eggshell. So if I click on that and I say apply, you'll see that it's changed it down here. That means that's what that product is. Now I'm going to have to do the same with this bigger piece over here, because this has still also got None. So I'm going to go back there, we're going to go to mineral, I'm going to go to concrete, and I'm going to say raw eggshell, apply. And what it will do now is when I render, it'll give this a different sort of effect on the render itself. Okay, so that's something just so that you're aware of, that you can do with any material. You can change it to whatever you want. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a render of this drawing. So the way to do it is go to Tools if you're using the new version, and we're going to go to where it says Real Scene AI Beta. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click there. First thing I want to do is I'm going to say Show and Hide Render Area. So by clicking on that, it'll give you a block of what you're going to see with inside your render. Okay, so I'm happy with that. If I come over to Real Scene over here, this block will change depending on what size you're going to do your render. So for instance, if I say 800 by 600 and I say OK, you'll see that this has come smaller, the block area that you're going to be rendering. Okay. So we're going to come back out, we're going to go back there, I'm going to do a full render. Okay. So OK, you'll see that my block has got bigger again. Okay, So what we're going to do now is we're going to click on the Real Scene Render AI configuration, and you'll see this is your main area that we're going to work with. So you've already seen me change the size over here. This is if we're going to do a 360, which I'll maybe make a video later on about on how to do a 360. Over here, this is going to tell you what your finish is going to be on your render, what quality the render is going to be. I personally, because it doesn't take overly long, I personally always just leave it on professional render. Okay. The piece underneath, you can load a background image. It could be any image. It could be one that you've been on site, you've taken a picture from the client's window. You can put that picture into this by uploading your image, and with this ticked, any window or open space that you've got will use this image. So it'll basically, it puts this image, imagine it like a canvas behind your whole drawing, and it spreads that image across the whole drawing. So you're going to maybe get the tree showing here, but in a window over here you wouldn't see this tree, you would maybe see this area over here, and so on. So it's not going to just put this in every single window, it actually stretches it across, so it makes it look more realistic. On this side where we've got use sun and sky, and then you've got custom. So I always leave this ticked on because that's going to give you your sunlight and everything like that. And then your themes, you can go down and you can choose your own theme. Now what I normally do is I start normally with midday. Okay. With midday, it's already going to set up a sunlight and skylight percentage or amount. I tend to change this. I do most of mine, I start mine at 400 by either 800 or 900, like that. Okay, and then below here you can choose the color of the sun or whatever you want to use. I like to just use a very light sort of yellow, like that, a custom color. I'm going to click on it and say okay. It's going to use that color just for the sunlight itself, so it's not just pure shine white, it's going to give you a little bit of a glow to it. Beneath here is where your sun and your altitude and direction of the sun is going to be. So because this is my sliding door, which is actually over here, I actually have moved this. You just hold it and click it and move it around. I've actually moved the sun, so I want the light to come through this window into my kitchen. This is the altitude, the height of the sun. Is the sun going to come in from down here, which is where it is now? If I move this down to there, it's going to come in more of an across like that. So I'm happy with where it is at the moment. This side over here, use watermark. You can upload your own little logo or whatever, and you can place it depending on the transparency, so you can see how bright it's going to be, and then you can offset it. You can also click in any of these boxes wherever you want the logo to be. So if I want the logo in that top corner, I can move it over there, and then I can move the offset to move that logo to wherever I want. Okay, so I'm going to leave it back in that corner. And that's really it that you need to know initially on playing around with your colors and your render settings. This is probably the most important that you're going to play around with. So usually I start off with this. If it's too light, then I'll make this one maybe 800. I don't go crazy, I won't make it 600. I'll probably go down by 100 or even maybe by 50 at a time. If it's too dark, then I'll maybe make this 500 and make that 1000. So there's a little bit of playing with it depending on the design itself. But I normally find 400, 800, 400, 900, or even 500, 800, 500, 900 is a good starting point to get an idea if you need to go darker or lighter. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to click on a render. And what it's going to do now is it's sending some information up into the cloud to do the rendering. On this side where it says Real Scene AI settings, we don't touch those at all yet. Okay, those we're going to touch later on when we show you how to do an AI render. But for now, this renderer is running on the settings that we've just shown. So we're going to leave that to run. And depending on how big your design is, how much reflections you've got in your design, how many objects like ornaments, things like that, will all determine the length of time that it will take to do the render. It obviously calculates on light reflections, things like that as well, which already, if you look down here, you can already see how the sun is coming in through the window over here. And you can already see reflections on the sliding door over here. And you're going to start seeing some reflections in the oven and maybe even on the hood. Once it gets to around about halfway on this line down here, you're going to actually start seeing how the render is built. You can start seeing it very slightly here. It's building it up in lines, in layers, and it starts from the bottom and moves up. And the closer it gets to where it's going to be, you're going to see more of a line definition. There's a line there, there's a line just there. So you'll see it'll start moving up. There it is there, and then it'll go to the top, and then it'll start again at the bottom. And it's literally just building the render line by line or section by section as it goes up to make it crisper, clearer, sharper, whatever it needs. As you'll see, we're there, it's done. So there's my render. I can obviously make this bigger so we'll be able to see it better. And there's my render. This now looks more like concrete, and you can see the reflections and things like that. Now once you've created this, yes, you can come over here and you can use the AI rendering. Now the way the AI rendering works is you've got a creativity. I don't go to 3. I find 3 is a little bit overkill. It tends to add things that maybe you don't need and things like that. So I'll normally run it at 2. I very rarely change the scale because it's not normally going to be seen on the screen, or even if you print this out on an A4 sheet, it looks fine as it is. You don't need to go to 1.5 or 2. So if you work just on the creativity, make it 2. And I've done quite a few tests on this and I find 2 seems to work the best. It is going to use, it's telling you here, it's going to use 1 credit. Now remember, on each program that you've got, you get 40 credits per month free of charge. Now you're not going to use AI rendering on every single drawing that you're going to render. You're going to use it on specific renders. So 40 should get you through the month, no problem at all. The reason I've got extra is there's 2 licenses, so I obviously use a few more as I do a lot of demos and things showing how this works. So once I'm happy with this, now I think, okay, I do actually want to do an AI render. What I can do is I can come over here and I can say create AI render. And when I click on it, it's going to pop up like this. You have so many credits. Do you want to proceed? You say yes, and it's going to use 1 credit. It's telling me there already. And at the bottom down here on the right bottom corner, it's uploading this image into the AI render system. And then what it's going to do is it's going to do a render for us. This takes a few minutes, not overly long. Just takes a little bit of time for it to uploading, which it's doing now. Now it's busy optimizing. And then once it's finished optimizing, it'll generate the image for you. And what it's going to do is it's going to split this screen into 2. So you're going to see your original high-end render. There we go, it's done. So this is your original high-end render. This is the AI render. And there are some changes. It's put a bottle in rather than having my things over here. It's used a different type of tap. The only thing that on this particular one I've noticed it does, it gives me a prep bowl over here, which is not really what I wanted, but it'll give you an idea. Now if you want to see the whole image, you can just scroll these up a little bit so you can see the effect that it's got on there. So this finishes. I tend to find not to use text, as you'll see how the logo comes out. It tries to regenerate the logo, but the actual wood and tiles and those sort of finishes really do come out. If you look at the original one over here, you'll see that the tile and the wall is a little bit, this is a bit sharper. The wood looks a little bit more like the actual grain that you want. So it's all down to what you want to actually achieve. So what you can do over here now is I can actually save these. So if I go here, I'm going to say save, and I've already got one in there, so let's just rename this one. Let's call this render H for like a high-end render, and then I'm going to save this one, and I can call this render AI, for instance. Okay, so I've got a couple of different renders. Once you've actually done that, you'll see that my credit went down by 1. I can just close this off, and I'm back into my design. Now at a later stage, what you can do is we can do exactly the same thing, but what we can do there is we can put different renders in. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if you go back up to my dynamic view, and I come over here and I say view 1, let's just make this a little bit smaller so you get to see a bit better. Okay. So for instance, I've got a view going this way. If I come down here and I say view 2, it's going to give me that view. I'll go to Steve 1, it gives me that view, and then the one we just created, which was that view. Now what you can do inside Promob, which is quite nice, I should have done it, let's just go here. Okay, let's go there. Okay, so by pressing Q render, it automatically puts it in. Okay, so what we can do is we can remove that one. So now that I've got this one queued, I can then go to the next one. So what I can do is I can come to my dynamic view, and I can say I want to queue that one. Okay, so what will happen is if I come over here and I say queue, and I look at my queue render, I've now got 1, 2. Okay, and now I can come over here and I can say view 2, for instance, and I can come over here, and under my real scene I can just click this button over here, and under my queue render it's going to give me 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so they're all slightly different. I'm going to just use 2 of them. I'm going to remove that one. I'm just going to use those 2 to show you how it works. So down here you can say save each render. You can ask it where you want to save it. So I'm going to save it on there, and I'm going to save it in my render video over there. Okay, and what that will allow me to do is it's automatically going to do both renders and save them for me. Over here it says shut down computer when queues are complete. If you're doing it overnight and you're going to be going away and leaving your computer, you can click that button and the computer will shut down when it's finished working with Promob. Close everything down. When you come in the morning, restart your computer and you'll have a folder wherever you've asked it to save it with your renders in there. So what we're going to say is start render, and what it will do is it's going to bring up the render box, and yes, again it's going to render it. It's going to go through the routine again of rendering that image, but it's going to do it twice. So what it's going to do is it's going to render the first one. When the first one is finished, it automatically switches to the second one in the queue, and it will render that as well. So if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 different viewpoints of your kitchen, and you've got your colors set up correctly, and you're happy with the quality of the render, you can then set it to render 3, 4, 5, 6 renders automatically. So that makes it a lot quicker when you're doing it that way. So the first one is almost done. And what happens is, I'll just pull it in, the second one is now starting. So that's your first one, and you'll see that click on this one, move it over here, see that the second one has started and it's a different viewpoint, different angle. So leave that one to run. Okay, so this one is almost finished now. There we go, it's done. Okay, so with those two done, now what we can do is, if I go to that folder and we can have a look, you'll see it'll give us two different names because it automatically names it for you. So if we double click on the one, there's the one render, already done. And if I click on the other one, there's the other render that is done. So it's done both renders automatically for us from the views that we've asked it to make the renders. Okay. So you can use that to make it a lot quicker. So we will just close off inside Promob. If you've got the render there open, you can literally just close it. And there we are, we've done our renders. So I hope this is going to help you be able to improve your rendering. We will run another video to show you the 360 render, but for now I didn't want to make it too long, so hopefully this will help and assist you with your rendering. So just remember, when you do your rendering, you can actually allow it to do it automatically for you and give you your full-on render.